What's up, everybody, and welcome to One Man's Opinion. And today we're talking about the Three Musketeers 1993 version that Disney put out way back in the year that I was born. Now, I'm calling this a review because I do a lot of reviews on this channel, and I am going to be reviewing the movie, but at the same time, I've been kind of wanting to do maybe a series where we take a look back at movies that I think deserve light, for movies that I think deserve some attention that may have been kind of lost to time at this point. It's probably likely that many of you have never seen The Three Musketeers, and those of you that have, I would think probably remember it quite fondly. And so I'm really looking for a good name for this series, and I just haven't come up with one. So if you guys want to help me out with that, leave it in the comments below. I would like a better title for this, because right now it's just gonna be The Three Musketeers, and it'll look like one of my typical movie reviews. But this, while it is a review of the film, also I want to take time in this channel to look back on some older films that we might have forgotten about a little bit, but that were really, really good and perhaps could be discovered by a new generation. Maybe that's the best way for me to say it. But anyway, talking about the movie, it really is a star-studded cast with Charlie Sheen. You have Kiefer Sutherland, Oliver Platt. Some of these guys, huge names, especially back in the early 90s. Some of them were just coming into what would be massive careers. You also have Chris O'Donnell, who went on to play Robin and had a huge career in NCIS for a long, long time. He may even still be doing it. I don't really know. You have Tim Curry, and just like every other person in this movie is like, wow, that's a big name actor right there. You know, there's another one. There's another one. And so right off the jump, looking at this movie from 2022, I'm like, wow, you know, I remember loving this movie as a kid, but in looking at who all's in it, I'm really just blown away by the cast. It's an amazing cast, and as you get into the movie, that cast has so much fun with the film and with the source material. I think it really bleeds through onto the screen. You can tell a lot of them are having a whole lot of fun. As for the movie itself, is it a good movie? Well, to be honest, with this new series and kind of looking back on older films that, you know, hopefully will show a new generation some older films that they might want to go check out. Of course, I think it's a good movie. Are there things that I think the movie could do better? Yes. I would say the first quarter of the movie, maybe not quite all the way through the first act, but the majority of the first act, I would say a lot of the dialogue isn't the best. It comes off very, very cheesy at times, almost eye-rollingly corny, especially in the very beginning with Chris O'Donnell, who is a young actor here, and I don't think always delivers his lines super well. But having said that, as the movie progresses and the light isn't on Chris so heavily, and you have Charlie Sheen and Kiefer and Oliver Platt there with him, that sort of fixes itself as it goes. Chris O'Donnell's performance gets better as the movie goes along, and by the end of it, it's nothing that you'll even think about. You'll have completely forgotten how awkward sometimes it was at the very, very beginning of the movie, because as you get into that second act and the third act, the movie is so much fun. It's so entertaining, and he really grows with the cast around him. As those other supporting actors come in and take a little bit of the light, he is, I don't want to say lost in the shuffle, because he certainly shines in his own way. He's almost boosted by the great charisma of the other actors around him. Speaking of which, let's talk about the Musketeers themselves. Number one, Athos. Kiefer Sutherland is the more serious of the Three Musketeers. Athos has this tragic backstory that you don't really figure out is his right when you hear the story, because he tells the story from the point of view of someone else. He doesn't say that the story's about him. And as the story goes, you might piece together that it could have been him, but later on in the movie, you kind of find out how that all went down. He is the more serious Musketeer, but he's also the vocal leader for the Musketeers. I think more than anything, he is the rallying point for the Musketeers. As much fun as Oliver Platt's Porthos is, and as convicted as Charlie Sheen's Aramis is, I don't think that they have the rallying point or the leadership qualities of Athos. And Athos is really the one that holds the team together and is a really super interesting and probably the deepest character in the movie, probably has the best story in the movie. My one complaint with Athos in the film is at one point someone, and I don't know how I want to do this. I don't want to give away too many spoilers in case I do inspire perhaps someone out there who hasn't seen this movie to go watch it. But Athos loses someone very important to him at one point in the movie and almost doesn't have enough of a grieving moment to me. At the same time, it could be argued that because of the circumstances, and again, this is difficult, if you know, that sort of thing, but if you don't know, I don't want to give too much away, but due to the circumstances around the death of this loved one, you could say that Athos has already mourned this person in his own way. And so perhaps losing this person at this moment he did not need to grieve quite as much. And so I could see the argument either way. I was just trying to, if I was to have a complaint, I wish they would have given him a little bit more of a moment, but I'm glad that they didn't overdo it. It is a fun movie, and so I don't think they wanted to bog down in that too much, but he is by far the most serious character and the character that has the most depth to them, arguably. Up next, we have Porthos, and Porthos is played by Oliver Platt. Now, I would say going into this movie, Oliver Platt would have been my least favorite actor coming into this movie. Of course, I've seen Oliver Platt in a lot of different movies, especially growing up in the 90s, early 2000s. He used to be in a lot of movies, but often he was sort of just a supporting character or, I never really saw him in a movie where he was the main character. And as far as his supporting roles go, the roles that I've seen him in, he's never been like a super impressive character to me. He has great comedic timing, but I've never been a big Oliver Platt fan. But I got to tell you, in this movie, Oliver shines. I think more than anybody, he was having the most fun with his character, with the story, just on set. It looked like Oliver was in his element. Whatever that was, this character of Porthos, the pirate, the former pirate, who is the dirtiest, sleaziest fighter of the Musketeers, not afraid to pull out an extra weapon, to break a sword, to pull out a gun, to just have these tricks, the bolas, where he hits the dude in the face. Porthos is not afraid to fight dirty, and he is the funniest of the three. Going into this movie, I couldn't remember because it had been so long what roles each of them played, but seeing Oliver Platt come in with this much charisma in this character really blew me away. As I watched it, I remembered how charismatic he was, but going into it, man, as he kind of opened up, every time you saw him, every time he's on screen, he's got something witty to say, something funny to say. He exudes charisma in this role, and I love it. I love it. He's by far, he's probably the most fun. I would say easily the most fun of the Three Musketeers is Oliver Platt's Porthos. And honestly, man, watching this guy, I think any kid, anybody of any age could watch Oliver Platt in this role and laugh at least a handful of times watching this movie and enjoy what they see. He's a really funny character. And then finally you have Aramis, who is the spiritual leader of the group, the devout Catholic, the former student of the evil cardinal played by Tim Curry. Aramis was my favorite character as a kid, and I don't know why. You would think that it should have been Oliver Platt because he is the funniest, but for whatever reason I was drawn to Aramis. I believe Aramis is the best swordsman of the three. There's multiple times where you see Aramis sort of taking on multiple Cardinal Guard, multiple of the Red Guard. There's even one point where D'Artagnan, Athos, Porthos, and Aramis are fighting against 5 guards, and each of them take 1 guard. Aramis is the one that fights 2. It seems like on multiple occasions, if you're watching closely, Aramis seems to be the best with a sword. That doesn't mean that he would win in a fight if the Three Musketeers were to fight. Oliver Platt having so many tricks up his sleeve would be difficult to deal with, and obviously Kiefer Sutherland, being the leader, probably has the most battle experience, and so maybe experience gives him the edge if you wanted to look at it that way. But if you wanted to just look at basic swordsmanship, sword skills, I think Aramis has the best sword skills. Aramis also has a really awesome story in this movie, and it's one of the more subtle plot lines of the movie. While D'Artagnan certainly has the main focus of the film, and then you have a big plot line with, obviously, with Tim Curry and the King and Kiefer Sutherland and the story that he tells, not to get into that too much. There is a smaller plot line between Tim Curry and the Cardinal that I think is a really great journey from start to finish when you really get into the meat and potatoes of it, and where it starts, where it ends up toward the end with the fight in the castle, and then such a great moment between him and Tim Curry when Aramis tries to stop him in the hallway. I won't give away what happens there, but man, what an amazing story, honestly. And like I said, Aramis was one of my favorites. Was probably my favorite when I was a kid. So super cool to see. Finally, I know we've already talked about Chris O'Donnell a little bit, but stepping away from his acting choices and just focusing on the story of D'Artagnan in this movie, I think it's really, really good. It kind of has a Princess Bride story to it a little bit of that Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die, a little bit of that. And so, you know, it's a really good story. I'm not going to say it's one we've never seen before, but with the supporting cast of the other Musketeers, I think it is told at least in a way that is different enough that it is still very, very enjoyable here. The only other actor I really want to shed some light on here is Tim Curry, playing the Cardinal as the villain. Look, if you grew up in the 90s, early 2000s, then you saw Tim Curry play some villains. And this man just, I love, Tim Curry can be the creepiest guy in the room. He can be the sleaziest guy in the room. He can be the most evil guy in the room. He can be the funniest guy in the room. He can be the most heartwarming character in the room. Tim Curry's acting abilities are actually astounding. He's so good. And if he wants you to hate him, you'll hate him. If he wants you to root for him, you'll root for him. And like, in this movie, he's really, really good. He plays this sleazy Cardinal who is just bent on taking all the power for himself. And man, I love him. I love the guy. There's not just a whole lot more I could say about him, but obviously Tim Curry is just the man, the myth, the legend. And he does an amazing job in this film. Having said that, man, the story top to bottom is a great story. It's a lot of fun, and it's a film for kids of all ages. It's a family-friendly film, and it's a feel-good film. It's got a lot of action. It's got love. It's got drama. It's got everything, honestly. And it's amazing to watch because as a kid, I loved this movie. Like, legitimately loved it. And watching it again as an adult just the other day, I was like, this is still a really, really good movie. When it first started, I was kind of worried because I was like, the dialogue's kind of clunky. The parts of this are a little cheesy. Maybe this movie isn't as good as I remember. But by the time the Act 1 is over and you're getting into the back 2/3 of the film, it's crazy good. It's super entertaining. There's a lot of like action, but it's like that kind of family-friendly action where it's still really good to watch, but it's not like super gory or gruesome or anything, obviously. The stunts are good. The choreography's good. There's action throughout, but plenty of moments of levity. There's comedy. There's romance. And honestly, it's a story with a little bit of everything, and it's really, really good. It's one of those movies that you don't really get much of that isn't just some flashy cartoon with a lot of like singing for the kids, and it's not like some overly done adult action movie that's got some sort of political subtext. Like everything we get nowadays is either like a rehash, a remake, it's got political subtext, or it's like super for the kids. Or, you know, this is a very middle ground movie where anyone of any age could legitimately put this in, watch it, and enjoy it. And for that reason, I'm giving The Three Musketeers a 96 overall. All right, well, what did you think about The Three Musketeers? Have you seen it? If not, please go watch this movie. I'm telling you, I don't think you'll be wasting your time at all. It's a really, really good movie. It's a lot of fun. Go check it out. And if you have seen it, let me know in the comments below what you think about this movie. If you haven't watched it in a while, what do you remember about this movie? What do you sit back and you're like, oh, yeah, no, this scene, I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember this particular scene that always stood out. For me, it was always when D'Artagnan is hanging from the flag up over the castle there, and Oliver Platt, Porthos, looks up and he goes, come, D'Artagnan, we're going to save the king. I don't know why, but that always tickled me as a kid, and it still tickled me when I watched it now. So what's that scene for you in this movie? Comment below, let me know. Also, if you didn't like this review or you didn't like Three Musketeers, let me know in the comments below. Just don't get mad about this review. Remember, this is all just one man's opinion. Thanks.